Okay, let's work out the last few on our notes. And these, if you notice, are going to have, these are examples that are going to have that greatest common factor. So they're giving you a hint. Make sure you're on top of your toes and looking for those. Okay, so on number 7, I have 10, 75, and 35. Okay, those are the first things I want to look at and see if there's anything I can divide evenly into all three of those numbers. And I can, okay? I can divide a 5 into each one. Now, they don't have any variables in common since that last term doesn't have any of the variables. So that will be my greatest common factor. And what will I have left in my expression after I factor out that 5? Well, 10 divided by 5 is 2, k squared, plus 75 divided by 5 gives me 15k, plus 35 divided by 5 gives me 7. Okay, so now let's take our remaining polynomial, it's a quadratic specifically because it has a k being raised to the squared power. That's the highest power, so we call it a quadratic. Let's look at that quadratic and go ahead and see if we can factor that more. Since it has a leading coefficient of 2, I know I'm going to have to use that x method. Okay, and on top we put our 2 times 7, which is 14. And on bottom, we put our b, which is 15. Okay, so we need two numbers that multiply together to give me 14 and add together to give me 15. Since these numbers are just one apart, I actually know that the numbers will be 1 times 14, okay? 1 times 14, when you add them together, they'll always equal 1 more than that product. So anyway, you can run through the list and see. All right, so now that we've done that, we need to divide by a and simplify. Okay, 1/2 is already simplified. 14 over 2 is 7. So these are my two numbers that I need to build my binomials. So let's go ahead and write these factors. So I still have my 5, don't forget that. And then my quadratic is going to factor into two binomials. The first guy, so I'm going to start with the 1/2. Okay, you begin with the 2, 2k, then we have a positive 1 plus 1. And then here we've got a whole number, so we're just going to start with k plus 7. Okay, and now you are factored. Okay, let's look at number 8. What can we divide evenly out of all of those terms? I believe we can divide out of 2. Okay, 12 divided by 2 is, so I'm going to pull that 2 out. And what will we be left with? 12 divided by 2 is 6, x squared. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 1 times x is just x, so I won't write that 1. Again, 2 divided by 2 is 1, but since that 1 is the entire term, it's not just a factor, a part of, a factor part of the term, it's just that whole term, I do have to write it. I can't just say it goes away, okay? All right. So now my remaining quadratic, I'm going to factor that as well. Since my leading coefficient is not a 1, okay, it's a 6, I'm going to have to use the magic x method. So I'm going to multiply 6 times -1, gives me -6. Okay, and then what is my coefficient in front of that x term? Okay, I don't see a number, so that means I only have one of those. So I have a positive 1. Okay, I need two numbers that multiply together to give me -6 and add together to give me 1. Let's see. A negative, I know I'm going to have one negative and one positive. So -6 and a positive 1, -1 and a positive 6, -2 and a positive 3, -3 and a positive 2. Which ones of these add together to give me 1? -2 and positive 3. Okay, now we're going to divide by a. Remember, my a is that leading coefficient. And we simplify. -2, 6, you can divide a 2 into both 2 and 6, so you're left with -1/3. And then here you're left with 1/2. So these will be my two numbers that I use to build my binomials. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I still have my 5 out there, and then I'll have 2 binomials. Okay, here I'm going to start with the 3. So I'll have 3x, and then I have a -1, so -1. And then on this side, I start with a 2. So I have 2x and then a +1. So that'll be +1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave number 9 and number 10 for you guys to do.